Thank you very much, Shabbat Shalom. Greetings to you all. I hope you are all as thrilled as I am to perhaps finally be saying goodbye to winter. We're rapidly approaching the first day of spring, when love is in the air, although I think love should be in the air every day. And the first day of spring is the first day of the year. And it marks the anniversary of something called for in this parsha, the date of the setup of the tabernacle and ark, and it also marks the countdown to the holiest day in the Torah, the festival of flatbread, not pizza, but matzah. And to Kabbalistic man, it marked the countdown of the 12 days that allow you annually to recreate your life as you would like to see it form. And we'll talk more about that next week. Well, it was a heavenly night for me the other night, friends. I was actually feeling quite fluish and fell asleep early, and I woke up at 1:30 in the morning just as Fiddler on the Roof was beginning. It is such a fantastic show, although I did prefer the Broadway cast to the film. But it was great to watch. And then a little later in the day, The Music Man was on, the good original from '62 with Robert Preston and the incomparable Shirley Jones, who was as fantastic in that as she would be 40 years later in Grandma's Boy. And of course, who couldn't think of Paul McCartney singing Till There Was You? And so I was in Broadway heaven, a great double bill. And this week we have a different kind of double bill, a double parsha reading. There were bells on a hill, but I never heard them ringing. No, I never heard them at all, till there was you. And of course we read about the bells on Aaron's priestly outfit, so that we would hear him, and we will see them made this week. Now, friends, in many ways, Till There Was You was the theme in The Music Man, played throughout the film, and the you, for us at this point in the Torah, is the man Moses. And the ending of the film reminds us that miracles do happen. And we are at a point where we have not only witnessed miracles, but they're going to be a part of life for the next 40 years. Never stop believing in miracles. And friends, the most important instruction in this parsha, and my focus, is regarding the Sabbath, which in many ways was the theme in Fiddler. It portrays the true distinguishing feature of our people, honored from the beginning. As the Sabbath prayer song goes, may you be like Ruth and like Esther. May you be deserving of praise. Strengthen them, O Lord, and keep them from the stranger's ways. Now, I was always surprised by that line, since Shabbat is something for the world to embrace. And of course, we just celebrated Esther with Purim, and International Women's Day was this week on March 8th. And how interesting that the two women mentioned would be a Moabite and a Babylonian representative of the goddess Ishtar. We need more strangers like them. We have a double parsha to end the book of Exodus, and if you like detailed instructions for putting things together, you will love this parsha. If you love pomp and circumstance, you will love this parsha. If you love the stories, the allusions, the moral fiber of lessons, well, you will love it a lot less. But friends, this double parsha ending to Exodus is thought-provoking. So please do not get wrapped up in the details. Keep your eyes on the prize and look at the bigger picture. The 10 words have been spoken. The blueprints for the machine of worship have been drawn. The process and path of holiness and awe have been laid out, and the people are getting ready to move. You are now at the foot of the mountain of God. You, my friends, are the witnesses to the greatest event man has ever seen, the Sinai Epiphany. You are about to undergo and observe daily miracles. And unbeknownst to anyone, there is going to be trouble with a capital T right there in Tabernacle City. Well, in many ways, this is a bean counter time. Vachayel Pekudei, he gathered the accounts. All those fantastic furnishings and worship trappings we were told about now get made. And last week I mentioned the rabbinic debate about the 1 versus 2 arks. Well, we see the artist formerly known as Bezalel make the ark. But we were also told Moses made the ark. So was it Moses? Or was it Bezalel? Or possibly both? It's a very interesting question. Not. Why do we have to believe there were two? Because of the wording in the Torah that tells us Moses built it. Now we see someone else is doing the actual building. There are so many of those types of misunderstandings and mistranslations that to pick this one diminishes its true importance. Friends, the initial plans were shown and explained to Moses, but they took the skills of the artisans to bring them to fruition, to life. And Moses assembled all the community of Israelites and said to them, "These are the things that the Lord has charged to do. 6 days shall tasks be done, and on the 7th day there shall be holiness for you, an absolute Sabbath for the Lord. Whosoever does a task on it shall be put to death. You shall not kindle a fire in all your dwelling places on the Sabbath day." Friends, translate this sentence as it was written without adding rules and regulations as they've developed. And what you're being told is there's an absolute Sabbath, an absolute ceasing. And ceasing in order to rest is not just a good thing, but a necessary thing and a godly thing. Friends, most of us live a different kind of life than biblical man did. In fact, probably up until the last century, there was much similarity in how man lived. Ancient man worked from the time the sun came up till it went down in order to survive. And even though we may feel the same way, they didn't commute to work, catch up on the latest news or gossip at the water trough, go home, play with the kids, go to lodge meetings, watch a little TV, or read by the candlelight. They were exhausted from the job of surviving. And so a day of ceasing, a day of regenerating, a day of being like God was actually necessary. Today, we spend parts of every day Sabbathing, that is, ceasing. And so it is different for us. We've also added a lot of rules, regulations, and interpretations, which makes Sabbathing somewhat more difficult for average people to observe. Now, for too many, it has become an all the way or no way. And I would encourage you to change that to a whatever way you can way, to bring back a connection to sacred time and sacred space in whatever fashion you can. And I'm sure you all noticed the first major change, interpretation, rule comes here: fire. And although he purports to be the spokesman of God, simply repeating commands, this was Moses' prohibition, not God's. This prohibition is a new specification. And note, it is specific to your dwelling place only, not the office, and not the tabernacle where the fire was lit each night. And our commentators have wondered, why did Moses add this? Why is fire singled out from all the things forbidden on the Sabbath? He appears to be giving the people the commandment that God had instructed him to give regarding working 6 days and ceasing on the 7th, almost verbatim, but then he adds the part about fire. Well, friends, perhaps the kindling of fire, as against merely making use of fire that has been set accidentally, is clearly a primary labor of civilization, almost a kind of inauguration of technology. Just think of all the things we do with fire. So it is understandable that a special prohibition of it on the Sabbath could be spelled out. But friends, the Sabbath is about separation and sanctification of time. It is about peace and respite, about family, about community, and about our being a holy people. 7 days, 7 more days trying to be tender with somebody I remember in a night that's always brighter than the day. A rarely heard Bob Dylan song, 7 days. And friends, I'm sure many of you saw the parallel to an earlier part of the Torah. The creation of the world in Genesis 1 also ends with the Sabbath. There we talked of its role as a sanctification of time, as opposed to the creation of things in space. The conclusion of the creation of the tabernacle is the sanctification of space. And so now we have the real unification of time and space, the two great cosmic movements that govern our lives. We also hear about the generosity of the people in this passage. And so the theme of Israelite generosity for the construction of the tabernacle, perhaps to make up for the donations for the golden calf, is given a climactic flourish. The donations go over the top and the people have to be held back from giving further. When's the last time that might have happened? Well, that probably was the last time that happened. The people are commanded to bring donations, yet they act with a kind of zeal that reflects more than just obedience to a commandment. They bring far more than what was required of them, and this is an essential concept ultimately for the entire notion of law and commandment in Judaism. You see, friends, the law is not regarded as a burden. It is mandatory, yet one fulfills it out of choice and with joy. And therefore the word for commandment, mitzvah, has two meanings to this day. It means a law that must be obeyed, but it also is understood to mean a good deed freely performed, and that is a mitzvah. But friends, this speaks of more than generosity. See, in Exodus 35:22, we see, the men came together with the women. The Torah usually either focuses on men alone or else uses the masculine plural to refer to all Israelites as a group. So this passage stands out for referring repeatedly to both females and males equally. Now, I'm not going to pretend that biblical Israelites were advanced enough to recognize the equality of people, but it does not hurt to notice the kernels of human rights and dignity that do appear. And it makes sense that this parsha segues into the next Pekudei, accounts, because in this instance, it is a word that means so much more than accounts. It is really about inventory, as it inventories the riches of the tabernacle. And so keep in mind that when an inventory is transferred from objects to people, as we will see on several occasions, it becomes a census. And friends, there is another fantastic controversial change in the Torah here. In Exodus 39:21, you see a major sentence is missing from the Masoretic text, which a Dead Sea Scroll and Samaritan text do contain. Our standard reading is, and they fastened the breastplate from its rings to the rings of the ephod with an indigo strand to be upon the band of the ephod, that the breastplate not slip from the ephod, as the Lord had commanded Moses. But the Qumran and Samaritan text insert here, and they made the Urim and Thummim as the Lord had commanded Moses. Those mystical means of communicating with God and asking a question. Now, it's believed that it was omitted because the scribe's eye jumped from the first occurrence of the phrase, as the Lord had commanded Moses, to the second. Now, this is known as haplography, and it occurs more than once in the Torah, and shows that even important matters can be lost by scribal errors of copying. And friends, in the desert and in our own wildernesses, it is so easy to lose track of things and time. As Jack Fate said, people are so busy trying to kill time, they don't notice time is killing them. So in Exodus 41, we are given our timetable. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, on the day of the first month, on the first of the month, you shall set up the tabernacle of the tent of meeting, and you shall put there the ark of the covenant, and screen the ark with the curtain. Well, the first day of the first month sounds a lot like New Year's Day. And since the first month was fixed as Abib, or in later Hebrew, Nisan, we can tell where we are in time. We are 1 year less 2 weeks since the departure from Egypt, and about to begin the second year of the Exodus. And Moses did it according to everything that the Lord commanded him. He did so. Friends, these are the exact words that are used to describe Noah's obedience. And there are several parallels between Noah and Moses, the only two biblical people associated with floating in arks. And he took and set the covenant in the ark. Now the covenant, edut, is the other common biblical term for pact, treaty, or covenant, and it clearly refers to the 2 stone tablets on which the words of the covenant were written. The tabernacle, therefore, serves an incredible double function. It is the place where sacrifices are offered, and it's also the place where the material document of an eternal contract between God and Israel was preserved. And although the burnt offering altar is called the Holy of Holies, the true supreme locus of the sacrosanct, the actual nexus between humanity and the divine, is the ark, within which the tablets of the covenant are kept, a magical thing for us. And now a period of daily miracles is about to begin. And the cloud covered the tent of meeting, and the glory of the Lord filled the tabernacle. And Moses could not come into the tent of meeting, for the cloud abode upon it, and the glory of the Lord filled the tabernacle. And when the cloud went up from over the tabernacle, the Israelites would journey onward in all their journeyings. And if the cloud did not go up, they would not journey onward until the day it went up. For the Lord's cloud was over the tabernacle by day, and fire by night was in it before the eyes of all the house of Israel in all their journeyings. Throughout these concluding verses, you can begin to hear the resonant tempo of a kind of epic narrative. The cloud and glory appear to be the same, or at the very least overlapping terms. The Lord's glory, kavod, is a palpable manifestation of the deity. It may have been imagined as a kind of mantle of light enveloping God, with the cloud giving off a luminosity by day parallel to the fire by night. This cloudy brilliance is so daunting to behold that even Moses does not dare enter the tent until the cloud lifts. And the terms of cloud and fire hark back to the initial report of the pillar of cloud and fire that marked the beginning of the wilderness narrative. So this whole segment is a kind of bookend structure. Earlier, the cloud and fire appear to show the people the way through the trackless desert. Now the cloud and fire have been given a constructed cultic focal point, the tabernacle, that henceforth will be God's dwelling place in the midst of the people. Yes, I've looked at clouds from both sides now, from up and down, and still somehow it's cloud illusions I recall. I really don't know clouds at all. Now, the concluding words of Exodus point not to the priestly regulations of the book of Leviticus, which follows, but to the book of Numbers, with its tales of wilderness wanderings, near catastrophic defections, and dangerous tensions between the leader and the led. Get ready for the first of the year, my friends. Get ready for spring. Get ready for the festival of flatbread. Love you all. Live free, be free, and honor your freedom. Be well, be happy, and be blessed. Share and honor the light and all who live in the light and continue to shine. Continue to send everyone you know goodwill and love. Pray for peace and freedom for everyone, an end to terror and hatred. Celebrate the people who are in your life, who have been in your life, and who will be in your life. And remember, friends, we are a community. We learn together. We celebrate each other. We love each other. And as the Rolling Stones sang when the great Brian Jones was still with them, hey, you, get off of my cloud. Don't hang around, baby, two's a crowd. Thank you all. Love you. See you all next time. Bless you. Shabbat shalom.